Lecture 12, Game Changer, Music in Video Games. Picture yourself deep into a new game. Your sly hero creeps through ghostly hallways. Your hands quiver nervously on the controller as your heart pounds in your ears, louder. Then the dark melody and underscoring of the scene. The music shifts, becoming lower, edgier, eerier, followed by a seemingly infinite instant of silence. Then, all of a sudden, the boss fight. The music explodes with energy. You are drawn in by the artistic imagery, storytelling, and music which skillfully moved you to this thrilling moment. In this lecture, we are exploring how the music of video games entertains, how it directs, forewarns, thrills, and engrosses gamers into an audible universe. From the modest 8-bit synthesized soundtracks of the 1970s and 80s to heroic orchestras, game music grew into a potent art form, a game changer. The earliest video games did not have soundtracks as we think of them today, and were not musically on par with film or television soundtracks at the time. 1972's Pong on the Atari system had no music, only simple blip sound effects. U.S. computer engineer Alan Alcorn created Pong and its sound effects. The music for Space Invaders, an arcade game released in 1978, a simple 4-note melody that speeds up as the alien ship approaches the bottom of the screen, was written by Japanese computer engineer Tomohiro Nishikado. Pac-Man was one of the earliest games that included a music composer who wasn't the game creator. However, little is known about Toshio Kai, who composed the catchy intro jingle and inter-level tunes. The Irish musician Martin Galway was a significant video game composer who wrote music for the Commodore 64 home computer, which was released in the early 1980s. The C64 featured a SID chip, revolutionary for its time, capable of producing more complex and expressive music. The 1986 side-scrolling shooter puzzle game Parallax featured a pilot navigating foes, obstructions, and power-ups, and at certain points, a top-down exploration segment in which the player walks, interacting with scientists, collecting codes, and solving puzzles to advance. Parallax offered Galway an opportunity to create one of his most expressive synthesizer compositions. Rather than using a simple looped jingle, the theme for Parallax develops over time, like a miniature symphony. Melodies layer over one another to make it sound like multiple instruments were being played at once. I'll give a link below if you're watching the video. In class, we'll listen to Martin Galway's 1986 composition, Parallax. The Japanese composer, Koji Kondo, is an iconic figure in video game music history. He wrote the music for Super Mario Bros. Series, The Legend of Zelda, and other games. He was hired by Nintendo in 1984, becoming the first full-time video game composer, and helped innovate game music to include memorable and emotional melodies and music that became more integral to gameplay. Kondo's themes from the 1985 Super Mario Bros. Has become some of the most recognizable tunes in the world. The melodies were looped, without being experienced as tediously repetitive, and even incorporated response to gameplay. Because the score was composed on NES's 5-channel sound hardware, its ingenuity was expressed wholly within technical limits composers today seldom have to overcome. In his 1986 Legend of Zelda, Kondo's themes evoke adventure, exploration, and mystery. The music creates a sense of place, shady caves, overworld countrysides, and dungeons with distinct sound worlds. We're going to listen in class to Koji Kondo's dungeon theme from The Legend of Zelda. Again, link below. And the intro theme. Game music was a big influence on diverse musicians, especially in the 1990s and 2000s. For instance, System of a Down performed Kondo's Zelda theme with lyrics. Another link below. Hip-hop and electronic artists sample 8-bit and 16-bit game soundtracks extensively, such as masked underground hip-hop artist MF Doom's sampling of the music from Street Fighter. He used these samples to build a surreal comic book aesthetic. Indie rock band Anamanaguchi, a prominent group in the chiptune and bit pop scene, uses NES hardware as an instrument. They modify the NES and Game Boy systems to generate authentic 8-bit sounds. Rather than sampling them, groups like Anamanaguchi turn hardware into an expressive instrument in their complex high-energy compositions. Other artists, such as the Postal Service, incorporate 8-bit synths and textures in their music, recreating their own classic game-derived glitchy textures, synth tones, looped patterns, and arpeggios. Their digitally constructed game-like textures often support emotionally raw lyrics. We'll listen to the Postal Service's 2003 standout song, Nothing Better. One of the most highly regarded video game composers of all time is the Japanese composer Nobuo Uematsu. His work on the Final Fantasy series helped establish game music as a serious art form. Uematsu is often called the Beethoven of video game music for his long-form melodic development and dramatic range. He is known for his emotional storytelling through music. Aerith's theme from Final Fantasy VII is often considered one of the most solemn and beautiful in video game music. Uematsu blends classical, rock, opera, jazz, folk, and ambient music. He uses leitmotif extensively, connecting themes to specific characters, places, and ideas as they appear in gameplay. Culturally, his soundtracks inspired a series of concerts in the 1990s, a more common occurrence today. These concerts have involved orchestras, pianos, rock, and popular bands. Take, for instance, Final Fantasy VI's opera scene, Aria di Mezzo Carattere. This 1994 game is clearly limited by technological development, but we can hear how Uematsu creatively expresses place and emotion in a song that is directly linked to gameplay. The game party must contact the airship pilot, Setzer, who is obsessed with an opera singer, Maria. The character Celes looks like Maria and agrees to pose as her on stage to lure Setzer. To sing the aria, the player must choose which lyrics are to be sung, and if they choose incorrectly or choose too slowly, they lose. Here's a link to the scene. The singer Sabina Zweiwacker later performed the song with the Swedish Radio Symphony, and there's a link to that below too. Also, we'll listen to the Hong Kong-based pop music star Fei Wong singing Eyes on Me from Final Fantasy VIII in 1999. The 2015 game Undertale, Toby Fox continues the legacy of Uematsu and other 8-bit and 16-bit era game composers. Fox uses recurring musical themes, leitmotifs, extensively, which evolve depending on your game choices, similar to how Final Fantasy VI's opera theme reflected narrative progress. Undertale also mixes retro chiptune style with more modern digital orchestration in tracks such as Megalovania, a driving chiptune bass and drums with layers of rock guitar and synth lines. Waterfall, Snowden Town, and Bone Trestle. Bone Trestle served as the battle theme for Papyrus, the awkward and lovable skeleton who dreams of joining the Royal Guard. The track captures Papyrus' silly poise, dramatic flair, and sweetness. We'll listen to Bone Trestle, link below. Game music has advanced from simple sound effects and jingles into richer, more emotional soundtracks that affect how we feel when we play games. Composers like Martin Galway, Koji Kondo, Nobuo Uematsu, Toby Fox, and many others have established ways in which we game. The music helps us communicate narratives, shape characters, and leave a mark on musicians beyond the game world. As players and listeners, we affirm this legacy every time we power up the latest game system or play on a computer or phone. Music is in the background, but it's more. At times, the music is the heart of the game.